So up to this point, we've been using the Octatrack primarily for production, but I want to shift gears a bit and talk about using it for live performance. As I'm sure you can imagine, there's a ton of different ways to approach performing live with the Octatrack. My typical approach is to use this more of like a pseudo DJ kind of machine and be able to play all of my own original music and crossfade between the different tunes. Basically, I can treat two different tracks like decks. I can use other tracks that are available as neighbor machines so I can add some more effects. I can utilize scenes to trigger different effects when I need to. And I find this to be a very powerful way to use it. This current setup that I have doesn't really fit what I'm going for, but that's okay. In fact, what I could do, well, you know what, we're going to start from scratch, but let me save this first. So let me go into my project menu. We've done all this great work. It'd be a shame to lose it all. So I'm going to go up to project and I'm going to save this. Now we see up here, production/lesson project. That's the folder that I'm in. We never left that. So I'm going to save everything that I've done. Now keep in mind, when I sample things, when I was recording to the track recorders, I made sure that I saved that stuff to a free slot and I've named it. If the audio that I sampled was still stuck in the track recorder and I didn't save those samples separately, if I save the project, I turn this off, I turn it back on, my project will be there. Any audio that was still in the track recorder will be gone. So make sure that you save your samples as well as saving your project. I've already saved my samples. I'm going to save my project now. I hit yes. That's fine. Yes. Save my project and all my good stuff. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to do this from scratch just so I can walk you through the process of my own personal little DJ approach. I'm going to change the project here. And once again, we're going to go and create an empty project. And I'm going to call this DJ lesson. DJ lesson. There we go. You'll get pretty fast on this the more you get used to it. And eventually we will have our new project. Okay, so I'm starting with the new project. Everything is in its default state. If I look at the different tracks, we're back to having 8 static machines. The sample slots are empty. Our scenes are blank. Our parts are blank. Everything is blank. But this is fine, because ultimately what I want to do is I want to treat track 1 like one deck, one turntable, and treat track 5 like a different deck or a different turntable, and use my crossfader to be able to crossfade between them. On my CF card, on my memory card, I have a ton of different songs that I've created using various DAWs, Ableton Live, Bitwig, things like that. And when I put them on my CF card, I made sure that I put the tempo that the project was made at, because it makes it a lot easier to assign the tempo in the Octatrack. One of the main benefits of using this as a DJ type rig is that everything will adhere to the tempo if it's been properly time stretched or if you're playing it at its original tempo. So that's one of the main things I want to go for. Now, let me go ahead and just grab some audio, and I'm going to put something in track 1 and put something in track 5. I'm going to use my static machine so that I can load up full songs and not worry about being limited with RAM. So static, I double tap slot 1. I press to the right. This brings me into my memory card. And I have a folder up here somewhere, audio exports to DJ. Okay, so I go into here, and all the stuff in here, all these different songs, beats, whatever, these are all things that I've made. Most of it's been made on a computer. Actually, I shouldn't say most. I'd say maybe about half of these were made on a computer. The other half were made on my Octatrack and then recorded into a DAW and then brought back here. And as you see, as I'm scrolling down, and I've still got more to go through, I've named all of these with the tempo first, so that when I bring these in, I know what tempo they should play back at, and that definitely helps. So let me go ahead and I'm going to bring in something that is at 141. And the main reason I'm doing this is because we had made something. Oh yeah, this is a good track. I'll bring that in here. So the name says 141, the tempo, the BPM says 141 as well, because I've already properly set this up using the sample attributes. Let me go to track 5. So I think what I'd like to bring in on track 5 is the song that we just resampled. And if I remember correctly, because I didn't remember just a second ago, it's in the folder that I named lesson something. So let me see, lesson project. Okay, if I go into here, so these are all the things that I had sampled. This is the reason why I chose to save the samples in the project directory, because it makes it easier to find specific things. like our bounce, tut bounce. I'll hit yes, select that. Now this also has the proper tempo because we resampled it at that tempo, so it already knows. Now let's just say that you're bringing in some audio and you know the tempo, but the Octatrack doesn't know the tempo. All you have to do is just go back into the sample edit area, go to the attributes, and then you can set the tempo right here. Now, I really highly encourage you, if you're going to go about this method of using the Octatrack for more of a DJ type performance, make sure that you know the tempo of the song that you're importing. It'll make it a lot easier to set the tempo as opposed to trying to fudge and figure it out when you get to the Octatrack. So just throwing that out there. All right. So the tempo's been set. If you have to set the tempo manually here, you want to make sure that you go to the file page and that you save the sample settings. So it'll make sure that every time it reads that sample, it'll know the proper tempo to play it at. All right, so let me back out of here. Let me get out of my slot playback mode and go to tracks. Okay, so I have something loaded in track 1, and I could play that by hitting this. I have something loaded into track 5, and I can play that by hitting this. Now they're both playing too slow, and my sequencer wasn't active, so those are two things that I want to remedy. And I also want to make it so that I can crossfade between track 1 and track 5. So how do I set that up? Well, we know that the crossfader is used to crossfade between different scenes. When I'm holding down one of the scene buttons, depending on what area that you're in the Octatrack, there's different things you're going to see show up. For example, if I hold down the scene A button right now, if you look at the track volume, it changed from saying LEV for level to XLV. This is the crossfade level. So we can assign it so that the volume for a particular track is up when the crossfader is on one side and down when the crossfader is on the other side. We can also do this instead of using the track volume, we can use the amplitude volume. If I go to the amp section here and I hold down the scene, now we have another knob for crossfade volume. Now, I prefer to use the crossfade volume in the amp page because if there's any effects that are on this track, if you turn down the track volume, those effects get cut off. If you turn down the amplitude volume here, the effects don't get cut off because the effects are still playing through the track. So that's the method that I prefer. Now I want to make it so that when I'm on this side of the crossfader, track 1 is up and track 5 is down. So this setting is fine, but I want to make sure that that's actually locked to this specific scene. So I'm going to click on that knob, and it's telling me that when I'm on this side of the crossfader, the volume for this track will be at its maximum. Now I'm going to move the crossfader over here. I'm going to hold down scene B, and I'm going to make sure that when I'm on this side, the track volume is at its minimum. Not the track volume, the amp volume. Now let me go to track 5 and do the exact opposite. Hold down scene B. When I'm at scene B, track 5 will be at its maximum. And when I'm on scene A, track 5 will be at its minimum. All right, so the way I have this currently set up, I need to play the sequencer, go into my grid record mode. Right now I'm on track 1, my crossfader is on the left side. If I enter the trig on the first step, that's going to play. I'll remove the trig so it doesn't keep looping, because if I leave that there, it's just going to keep looping indefinitely. So let me stop that there. Now I'm playing this at its original tempo, 141 BPM. If I go into the playback setup page here, time stretching is on, but generally if you're time stretching full songs, especially songs that have a lot of bass, it doesn't necessarily sound that great when you're playing it below its original tempo. So I like to try and play them at their original tempo, but I leave time stretching on, so if I need to nudge the tempo up or down a couple BPM to transition, it doesn't throw off the timing of everything. So with that said, we got our beat playing at its original tempo. If I'm ready to crossfade onto the next track, go to track 5. I'm going to put in a trig here. I'll start crossfading over. And there's the track that we recorded directly from our Octatrack, blending in with something that I recorded from Ableton Live. Now track 1's still playing. If I want to stop the audio on track 1, I can hold the track 1 button and press stop. And now that's no longer playing. Now at this point, while track 5 is playing, I could go to track 1 sample slots and I could choose a different song to play. I have a few different tunes here that are at 141 BPM. I'm going to choose that. I'm going to exit out of here. When I'm ready, I can start to play that new song. So I'll wait. Put my trig there. Crossfade over to it. So this one doesn't really start with any drums, but they're going to come in eventually. Turn the track volume up a bit. So by doing that, it's very easy for us to do a little DJ setup and just crossfade back and forth between the various tracks. But there's a lot more that we can do in terms of adding effects and triggering these songs in a more efficient manner. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this DJ setup.